Good morning, all. Quote Eleanor Roosevelt. Where, after all, do the universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home. So close and so small that they cannot be even seen on any maps of the world. Unless these rights have meaning, they have little meaning everywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them, may in the larger world. Human Rights Day is observed every year on 10th of December, the day the United Nations adopted its Declaration on the Human Rights. The UDHR is a milestone document that proclaims the inalienable rights which everyone is entitled to as a human being, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, language, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. This year's Human Rights Day theme relates to the COVID-19 pandemic and focuses on the need to build back better by ensuring human rights which are central to the recovery efforts. Being the fact that until and unless our human rights stands protected, we cannot talk about our development. We will reach our common goals only if we are able to create equal opportunities for all. We are able to address the failures exposed and exploited by the COVID-19 and apply the human rights standards to tackle the entrenched, systematic, and intergenerational inequalities, exclusion, and discrimination. 10th of December is an opportunity to reaffirm the importance of human rights. In rebuilding the world, we want the need for global solidarity as well as our interconnectedness and shared humanity. As per the theme, the Stand Up for Human Rights, Recover Better, the Faculty of Law at Integral University has organized the entire session to make you understand the importance of human rights in our day-to-day lives. How much it is necessary to build the entire infrastructure of having a healthy and a standard dignified living. The importance of human rights is everywhere, and in no sense it can be denied the entire importance with regard to the basis and the formulation of the laws itself. With regard to the celebrations, and as we have arranged the entire program, the Faculty of Law is pleased to welcome you all in the celebration of the International Human Rights Day. Today, we have designed the entire session to give the entire understanding of the concept of human rights and how the human rights are related to a dignified living. And in the very process, we would be also giving you a highlight of the campaign to be initiated by the Faculty of Law. To make a formal address, the leader of the class, Dr. Naseem Ahmed, our HOD, Faculty of Law at Integral University, I would like to invite him to acknowledge the commencement of the International Human Rights Day. Sir.
Distinguished delegates, faculty members, and dear students, good morning. I, Dr. Naseem Ahmed, on behalf of the Faculty of Law, convey my deep regards and sincere welcome to today's experts, Dr. Asad Malik sir, Associate Professor, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi, and Sayyid Sajjad Hussain Kazmi, Clinical Psychologist. His mere presence in our efforts is a sense of appreciation and the source of encouragement for all of us in organizing the event. In keeping with the theme of International Human Rights Day 2020, I want to welcome you all here to witness and perceive the theme of today, Recover Better, Stand Up for Human Rights. This year's Human Rights Day theme relates to COVID-19 pandemic and focuses on the need to build back better by ensuring human rights are central to recovery efforts. We will reach our common global goals only if we are able to create equal opportunities for all. Address the failure exposed and exploited by COVID-19. 10 December is an opportunity to reaffirm the importance of human rights in rebuilding the world. We want the need for global solidarity as well as our interconnectedness and shared humanity. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. The right to life is undoubtedly the most fundamental of all rights granted by the Constitution of India, and Universal Declaration of Human Rights has been recognized as model code of conduct for the protection of right to life. International Human Rights Day marks the recognition of the ideals of the theory of right. It is through human right we ascertain the dignity of human life and with the immerse the concept of free and dignified style of living. The operation created in the minds of the present generation due to various social, psychological pressure have brought the issue of suicide as a central theme of human rights. In the present pandemic situation, the reason of suicide have all the more emerged and opened the avenue of debates over the prospects of consequences of suicide. For this Faculty of Law at Integral University has initiated the campaign United Against Suicide. During this entire session, we have tried to establish the recognition of human rights over the current theme of Recover Better, Stand Up for Human Rights, and establish the importance of right to life with its counterpart right to die. I, on behalf of the Faculty of Law, welcome you all to be the part of initiative undertaken by the Faculty of Law. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite Dr. Mirza Junaid Beg to invite our guest lecturer on this auspicious occasion of the International Human Rights Day.
Good morning, all of you. It is a glorious moment to extend my warm wishes on behalf of Faculty of Law, Integral University. It is an opportune moment to refurbish and debate upon the problem in execution of human rights. Human rights must be at the center of the post-COVID-19 world. Therefore, the COVID-19 crisis has been fueled by deepening poverty, rising inequalities, structural and entrenched discrimination, and other gaps in human rights protection. Only measures to fill these gaps and advance human rights can ensure we fully recover and build back a world that is better, more resilient, just, and sustainable. Human Rights Day is a time to reflect on recent events, both in India and internationally. It is also a time to think back to that time when the UDHR was adopted on 10th of December 1948. Consider the world at that time. People is still shell-shocked from the bloodshed of the Second World War, numb from the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps, and despite the peace, is still fearful for the future and the threat of new wars. More carnage. Imagine the world at that time. you get a sense of the motivations of those who drafted the Universal Declaration. While the language of the UDHR is very simple, but its message is strong. It foresees a world where nations foster friendly and peaceful relations with each other, where people enjoy a better standard of life, and where there is universal respect for human rights. I, Mirza Junaid Beg, take this privilege to warmly welcome Dr. Asad Malik sir. He is currently working as Associate Professor at Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi. He did his LLM from MJP, Rohilkhand University, Bareilly, and PhD from Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi. Apart from this, he taught at various institutions like University of Lucknow. His area of academic interest primarily includes constitutional law, administrative law, and law of tort. He is also member of different organizations. He delivered more than 25 guest lectures and talks on different topics. He also held different positions like faculty coordinator, polling officer, moot court judge, member of editorial board, etc., and organized many conferences, workshops, and seminars in his academic competencies. Apart from participating and presenting papers in various seminars, conferences, and workshops, he has around 15 publications in reputed journal to his credit. Welcome, sir, and enlighten us with your valuable and thought-provoking lecture. Sir, the house is open for you.
Thank you. Good morning to all of
Good morning,
you.
sir.
First of all, I would like to congratulate to the Faculty of Law Integral University, and I would like to thank Dr. Naseem for giving me this opportunity to interact with you, and happy Human Rights Day. It was on the occasion when we were the student of the LLM. Then I remember the topic of the 10 December, which was given in 1998, was that human rights and violence against women. And in 1999, it was given the human rights and the environmental protection. And today, Naseem Saab given me the topic that is recover better, stand up for human rights. That is the theme by the given by the United Nations. Actually, as the Dr. Naseem also talked deliberate about the human rights and the importance of the human right with respect to the personal life and the liberty. As all we know that the human rights are the rights a person has simply because he or she is a human being, irrespective of the religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth. And these rights are the essential for the human being. And we know that when we will go and see that it is not the new thing, the human right. When the society came into existence, as we know that the Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, the society social contract theory was given. But before that as well, when we will go in the religious scriptures, then we will go in the ancient time, then we will see whether this Quran, Bible, Gita, Guru Granth Sahib, every religious scripture talks about the rights, and basically those rights used to be human rights, or you can say the basic rights. But particularly as in introductory lecture that was told by Dr. Naseem and other teacher as well, that after the Second World War, particularly this Nazi, when these Jews killed, and then it was the concern of the international community to come out with some of the human rights. And basically this was not new again. As we know, the first written document was relating to the fundamental human rights was, or you can say the basic rights was the Magna Carta, and then the Bill of Rights, and then this French Declaration, and then the American Constitution was the first constitution of the world, incorporated the fundamental rights through the first 10 amendments. And then in 1948, you know that this Universal Declaration of the Human Rights that declared by the United Nations. And because of that reason, we are celebrating this as a Human Rights Day. And there were basically three main declarations. That is when 1945, the United Nations came into existence on 24th October. And then in 1948, 10 December. And even before that, on 7th April, World Health Organization, as you know, that playing the crucial role during this pandemic. And then on 10th December 1948, this Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. In addition to that, the two more covenants, Civil and Political Rights Covenant 1966, and that Social and Economic Cultural Rights Covenant 1966. So these were three main declarations for the purpose of providing the protection to the rights of the individuals. And it vary country to country. Even this is at the international level, where we'll see in our country, as we know that under the Constitution of India, the framers of the Constitution, because our Constitution started, the first meeting was held on 9th December 1948. And then they started to frame the Constitution. And the first subcommittee which was constituted with respect to the incorporation of the fundamental rights, the meeting was held on 27 February 1947. So you can imagine that in 1947, the our framers started the process to incorporate the fundamental rights in the Constitution of India, even prior to the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, which came into existence on 10th December 1948. And other than that, also the Indian Parliament passed the law that is known as the Protection of the Human Rights Act 1993, which defined the human rights as the rights relating to the life, liberty, equality, dignity of the individual, guaranteed by the Constitution and embodied in the international covenant, enforceable by the court of law. To me, this reflects this journey of the human right from this inception to this 2020, when this recover better or stand up for human rights. Actually, this theme was given as we know that this United Nations considered this document, particularly Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, one of the most important documents which proclaim the inalienable rights and which everyone entitled to enjoy these rights. And we know that when this COVID-19, this affect almost all the rights. When we will see the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, 30 articles. And the first article that all human beings are born free with dignity. This COVID-19 affected all basic rights, civil, political, economic, cultural, means every right has been affected by this COVID-19. Because of that reason, this year it was decided by the United Nations that this they have to focus on the need to build back better by ensuring human rights that is the central to the recovery effort. Means keeping in view at center these human rights, we have to build back better and we will reach our common global goals if we are able to create the equal opportunities for all. Actually, you know that when we will see that the basic points which were suggested by the United Nations through this theme, so basically one of these inequalities. So you have to give equal opportunities to all for address failure exposed, exploited by the COVID-19 and apply the human rights standard to tackle this systematic and international inequalities, exclusion, discriminations, which we saw everywhere in the world. No country is the exception of these discriminations. Stigma. Those people found that COVID positive in the beginning. The people were not ready even to talk to them, to even treat them. This kind of discriminations. Because of that reason, this theme will help and give us an opportunity to reaffirm the importance of the human rights and rebuilding of the world. We want the need for global solidarity. Global solidarity is one of the most of the requirement because we have to give the relief, solidarity. We have to stand for them, and we can do it as a human being because it is to be said that humanity, insaniyat, that is one of the best because no West religion then the respect the human rights of the other. This is the best religion that we have to do charity for the other. It is the best religion that we have to respect the rights of the other. How can we do it? When we are performing our fundamental duties, which is also, you can see, the duties is also given under Article 29 of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. So that is only be possible. Then every human being all over the world will stand, or you can say the work with solidarity. So this particular Human Rights Day, as your university is organizing this program, and the basic objective of celebrating this, or your organization is organizing this program, that is only objective to provide the opportunity to raise awareness about the importance of the human right at the local level, national level, and international level. Because we are the law student, we may know about the importance of the human rights. So far as the others people are concerned, laymen are concerned, they might not be aware about the human rights. So this is the day for awareing all the individuals about these rights of the human beings. So this stand up for human rights. Actually, how can we do it? How can we stand up? Here we can do one thing, that to engage the general public, our partners and the United Nations family, that the transformative action showcase practical and inspirational examples that can contribute recovering better and fostering more and more for the just society. So here, for what purpose? So that the people of the world can live with dignity, freedom, equality, justice, peace, which is the core fundamental of the human rights we can show, and these human rights guaranteed to everyone and cannot be taken away. So human rights essential for all of us to develop to our full potential as individual and as a member of the communities. So these human rights matter for us, and you know there are a number of the international agreements, and we define minimum human rights that must be protected, promoted, and the impact of the human rights is deepest at the individual and community level. So here we after all do universal human rights again start existing. You can't say that this is a 1948 Human Rights Declaration. And other than this COVID-19 also, we can see some of the incident at the world level. As this Dr. Naseem said that you know that this right to food means the hunger. People are dying because of the starvation. It means we are not in position to provide the minimum nutrition to them. And Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, that is guaranteeing this human right. And other than this also, right to education, which has been guaranteed under Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, that also affected due to this COVID-19. And most important precious right, as Dr. Naseem also mentioned, right to life. When we'll read it with Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights and Article 21 of the Constitution and Amendment 5 of the American Constitution, that is one of the most important rights. But we know that the incident that came out and that you can say that all over the America, lot of protest against the death of the George Floyd by the police officers. Even we can understand, we are talking about in 2020 that the protection of the human rights, and this is the country, first country of the world which incorporated the fundamental right in the Constitution. And this incident when came from America, shaking the confidence of the people of the world, that so far as the human right is concerned and the police torture and custodial death is concerned. This was also the reason that this 2020 number of the incident. When we categorize the human rights, actually when the human rights came into existence, as we are talking about in 1948, now it is to be said the first generation right, second generation right, and third generation right. Reason? Because the time change, and with the change of the time, our necessities, our requirements also change. And for that purpose, the law should also be changed, and we have to develop the law in accordance with the aspirations of the people. And Bentham said the greatest happiness of the greatest number, it is the objective. Salus Populi Suprema Lex, welfare of the people is supreme law of the land. And it is our responsibility to respect each and every individual. There was one of the poetry कि आपकी नजरों में सूरज की है कितनी असमत, आपकी नजरों में सूरज की है कितनी असमत, हम चरागों का भी उतना ही अदब करते हैं. Means every individual, whatever may be, every person have the civil and political rights, and these rights must be protected. So that I was talking about the classification. So first generation right, when we'll see that the civil and political rights. And the second generation right as economic, social, and cultural rights. And the third generation right, that right of self-determination and right to participate in the benefit from mankind's common heritage, mankind's of common heritage. Means this third generation right, when you will link it with the today's theme, then you can realize the importance of this third generation right. As now you know that the basic objective of this theme is keeping in view this impact of the COVID-19. And as we know that from the December 2019 till 2020 December, almost 1 year, we are facing this problem. And there is most of the countries are facing this problem without any exception. And when it started from China, and it everywhere in every country, and it affected almost all the human rights of the individual everywhere. So because of that reason, the standard of the health and that obligates the government to take steps to prevent threats to the public health and to provide medical care to those who need it. And human rights also recognize that in the context of the serious public health threats, the public emergencies threatening the life of the nation, restrictions on some of the rights can be justified when they have a legal basis, are strictly necessary based on scientific evidence, and there should not be any arbitrariness or discrimination in the application of these schemes. And as we know that this severity of the COVID-19 pandemic, that rises level of the public health threat because it was declared emergency, health emergency. And outbreak of this COVID-19 compelled most of the countries of the world that to impose the lockdown. And we know what happened when this lockdown was imposed. That as we are talking about that lot of discrimination, lot of violation of the human rights in different form, and also respect of the human dignity. To provide this kind of, you can say, the assist them to stand up and against this COVID-19 and how to recover better. This is the global objective through the United Nations. And as you know that this was the basically the main role played by the World Health Organization, WHO. As I told you, the WHO was established and started working at 1948. And WHO actually, there are a number of the disease plays the important role like the HIV, AIDS, Ebola, Zika, and now this is the coronavirus. So this UNO is playing the important role in this direction. And for that purpose also, that you know that you need this United Nations Human Rights Council also stands united on this COVID-19. Because this council launched an unprecedented virtual information meeting in response to the COVID-19, and they said that this High Commissioner for the Human Rights and civil society groups called for human rights approach, and they said that we have to meet out the this problem, and we have to help all these, irrespective of all caste, creed, this, and even you can say the nation. This is when this problem arises, and we know that United Nations Council, WHO, and other organizations plays an important role. At the same time, when we will analyze the situation and in different countries, basically the rights of the individual violated. For example, when you will see the one of the most and foremost important right is that is the protect the freedom and expression and ensure access to critical information. That is one, because the people must be aware about this problem. And international human rights law, when we'll see that these governments have an obligation to protect the right to freedom of expression. Article 19 of the UDHR also talking about right to seek or receive or impart the information of all kinds. But you know what happened? Most of the time, we saw that the government tried to suppress the people. And particularly when you will see that China, when the first case came, the China government initially withheld basic all the information. Even they did not tell to the world and even to their citizens as well about the coronavirus. And what they did also, if somebody disclosed this, then they also try to put the pressure, and authorities detain the people for reporting on the epidemic on the social media or internet issues for rumor mongering. So means you can see this kind of the censorship about this. And in Iran also, when this outbreak emerged, after this, authorities have severely damaged public trust by brutally repressing widespread anti-government protests, lying about the shooting down a civilian airliner. So means, and other country also, you can see the Thailand, the whistleblower in the public health sector and online journalists have faced retaliatory lawsuits and intimidation from authorities after they criticized the government response to outbreak. Means the government were not ready to listen about this kind of, even the cases of the corruption came there. But some of the countries also play the important role. Singapore government published and regularly updated the detailed statistics on the numbers and rates. South Korea government also published health data. In our country also, in the beginning, the press conference by these officials of the government. But at the same time, as we know, number of the matters reach to the court of law in our country as well. For example, so far as the identity of the COVID-19 patients, then the question arises that it is a violation of the right to privacy. So in the case of the Ananga Kumar versus Union of India 2020, in Ananga Kumar 2020, the Orissa High Court, when disposing of the public interest litigation, they said that the state has to uphold the right to privacy of the patient by preserving their identities. However, it has also stressed that right to privacy, like any other right, is not absolute right. The court said whenever it is necessary, they can do, but keeping in view the right to privacy, the right to information to be exercised. If the disclosure of the identity is in the interest of the patient, or you can say the public interest, then it can be done. But unnecessary disclosure by the media should be stopped, because the freedom of speech and expression is a right. Electronic and print media can exercise, but they are not supposed to unnecessarily disclose the identity. And you know that another judgment that was delivered by this court, that regarding this Balu Gopal Krishnan versus State of Kerala, where this court, with respect to it was the attempt at how to fight with this COVID-19. It is not so easy. Then they said we have to create some software, and that they provided that sprinkle. But the question arises with respect to this implementation of this software. Even the government said that anonymity should be maintained and we have to allow this software. Otherwise, it will not be possible for the government to treat these people. And you know, yesterday, one of the judgment delivered by the Supreme Court of India, respect to the posters outside the patient's home. As we know, if there is any patient in the house or home that COVID positive, then they affix one of the poster outside the home. In the whole building, whole society, not ready to mix with those people, not ready to talk. Then the petition was filed in the Supreme Court of India. And yesterday, the Supreme Court of India held that the affixing of the COVID-19 poster outside the homes of the patient can be done only if there is a direction from the competent authority under the National Disaster Management Act. Reason is that even it was good, but ultimately how the people are treating, how the society is taking, and even number of the cases came out where the people discriminated with the patient of COVID-19 in the buildings. The people even called 100 number in our Delhi, and they said that this person should be shifted from this building. So there are a lot of problems. Because of that reason, the petition was filed. So you can imagine the steps of the United Nations. Stand up. We are supposed to stand up. For whom? For all of us, be the people of the world. How can we do? We have to show the solidarity with these people. And it is the responsibility of all human beings. They have to stand for all human beings. And they have to assist without any discrimination, irrespective of the religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, as we saw that number of the incidents also when the discrimination on the ground of the religion. And this Tablighi Jamaat and all, there is no exception. Means, and you know that again, right to health. This is one of the most important right. And Article 25 of the UDHR. And right to food also covered by the same article. Article 21 in our constitution, when the right to health was declared as a fundamental right. When this COVID-19 pandemic, then we know that the courts also were confused. When first time the court is saying, Shashank Des, the Union of India 2020 free of cost, we have to provide the testing. But all of a sudden, the court, in the same case, Shashank Sudhyonidhi modified the judgment, and they said, not those are coming under the Ayushman Bharat scheme, then they can be provided the free testing, otherwise you have to pay. And then the government, even the court in India, played the important role. So far as this rapid testing, it was because of the initiative of the Supreme Court of India. In the case of the Rajesh versus Union of India 2020, when the Supreme Court issued the guidelines to the central government. So far as the distribution of the ration also, and in between, keeping in view the health workers, corona warriors, as the United Nations also in one of this point, we have to even keep in mind these contribution of these officials. Very good judgment delivered by the Supreme Court of India with respect to this ensuring the safety of the healthcare professionals. And this judgment was Gerald Bennett versus Union of India. Gerald Bennett, Union of India 2020. This is the judgment where the Supreme Court of India issued the some of the directions to the respondent in reference to the pandemic COVID-19, such as ensuring the availability of appropriate personal protective equipment, and that providing the necessary police security to the doctors and medical staff, hospital places. Means this is very good judgment was delivered. At the same time, because when we will see that rights are unlimited, every right is a human right, or under the constitution it is a fundamental right. So far as the rights of the children, rights of the under trial prisoners, because of that reason, some of the countries, even our country, the court issued the direction to release those people either on parole. And the child in conflict with the law, in recognition COVID-19 virus in Children Protection Home 2020, the court issued the direction to release those children. But at the same time, one more thing, as I also mentioned one of the example of police brutality. And we saw that in the name of the freedom of speech, how these some of the countries treated their citizens, even the reporters, media. And as I also told this, George Floyd in America. Here when we'll see that this right means against the atrocities, or you can say custodial death or torture, a number of the conventions are there. In our country also, when this lockdown was imposed, and we know what kind of the role, even the police played the very important role. But at the same time, some of the incidents came for the violation of the human rights by the police officials. And the first case in India, suo motu cognizance taken by the Kerala High Court. And Kerala High Court in 2020 on 30th March, it was the first case, even later on number of the decision delivered. In this case, the Kerala High Court said that the pandemic that engulfs us all, our laws cannot remain silent. Our laws cannot remain silent. They must continue to operate as to protect the rights of our citizens. It is well established that our jurisprudence, that fundamental right to life and the personal liberty guaranteed under Article 10 Constitution cannot be suspended even during the emergency. This is not emergency. So the court said it is the responsibility of the police. They should not cross their limits, and the state authorities and Union of India should issue the guidelines. And also the court said, one of the judgment delivered by this Madras High Court, ML Ravi, State of Tamil Nadu, the balanced approach has to be maintained. Balanced human approach means the public interest is also, if people are coming out, they should not come out. The Himachal Pradesh recently said the very careless approach by the human beings in India. But it is our responsibility to make a balance. In our country also, a lot of examples of the violation of the human right by the police, and some of them reach to the court of law. But one of the very worst incident, we know that in Tamil Nadu, the father and son, they opened the shop beyond the lockdown period time or this time allowed. They were taken to custody and beaten by the police, and unfortunately, the death of both father and son in the police custody. And matter reached to the court of law, and even this question mark on the functioning of the magistrate. When through the video conferencing, the remand order was given by the magistrate, then the question was that at that time they were injured and they were beaten by the police. But you know, now the inquiry committee is going on, number of the police officers has been arrested. But why this person was opening the shop? Because we know that right to livelihood is also one of the human right and the fundamental right, which is a part of the right to life and the personal liberty. But you know that only violation, if a person who is liable for violation of the norms of the lockdown will be liable for this under section 188 of the in the Indian Penal Code. It does not mean no one has right to kill those people in the custody. Reason is that, as you know, that one of the poetry of the Munawwar Rana, एक निवाले के लिए जिसे हमने मार डाला वो परिंदा भी कई रोज का भूखा निकला. Means these people are struggling for their livelihood, and we know that number of the people lost their employment. All the sectors affected due to this COVID-19. When we will see the whole structure of the society even disturbed, and we know the condition of the economy. So means here the responsibility of the citizens. As you know that I wrote one of the article, even I sent this to Dr. Naseem as well, this fundamental duties during COVID-19. When you will see this article, in this article I try to mention even this N. Prakash judgment I cited, Gerald Bennett judgment I cited. N. Prakash, the court also said that this a person was allowed to move and the person want to purchase some food for this animals. So means here it is the responsibility of the human being to come forward. As you know that Honorable Prime Minister said, Vasudhaivam Kutumbakam. This is the responsibility we have to come forward and assist the people, those low income group. And this approach is a human approach. And every religion, I in the beginning told you, charity. In Islam, there is a concept of the zakat. Zakat does not mean that only at the time or occasion of the Eid you have to give. If the person is, you know that you are in position to help or assist the other, then you must do. And you know fundamental human rights in Islam, that is also one of the important concepts that has been incorporated in the Quran as well, when we will study. So means here that the protection of the health worker, fulfill the right to education, address appropriate root out the discrimination, ensure the marginalized population, protect community and civil society, promotes the right to water, sanitation, ensure the humanitarian aid continues. Means it is reflecting that all these endeavors should be done by the people of the world to tackle this problem of the COVID-19, and we have to stand up. And here this here United Nations that this COVID-19 crisis has been fueled by deepening poverty, rising inequalities, structural and entrenched discrimination, and other gaps of the human right protection. It is our responsibility to fill that gap. Only measures to close these gaps and advance human rights can ensure we fully recover and build back a world that is better, more resilient. What are these? This was given by the United Nations. Number 1, end discrimination of any kind. Number 2, address inequalities. Number 3, encourage participation and solidarity, which is one of the most important. And here the role of the civil society become the more important. Reason is that because the civil society can help, and we need to ensure the voices of the most affected and vulnerable inform the recovery efforts, and promote the sustainable development, because the sustainable development goals to be achieved by 2030. When we need the sustainable development for the people, then it is also necessary that we have to provide them this assistance. And other than, in the last, I am telling you that other than these COVID-19, recently the Allahabad High Court, in the reference of the condition of the district jail, we know the positions of the jail are worst, and number of the time the guidelines issued, and recently the Allahabad High Court issued the guidelines so far as to improve the condition of the Basti jail, because those people are languishing in jail. They are also the human being, and they are also maybe a sufferer, because their fundamental human rights may be violated. And COVID-19 also, number of the cases came from the different jail, and because of that reason the court issued the direction that these people should be released. And so far as the default bail is concerned also, the court said, and these orders has been extended time to time by the different court. And on other side, for the purpose of the victim's human right by the police, as just I told you, that this recently in the case of the Parambir Singh versus Baljit Singh 2020, this was also decided in December. And here the direction issued by the Honorable Supreme Court with respect to the installation of the CCTV cameras in the police stations, NIA, CBI, ED, everywhere this camera should be installed. Why? To protect the citizens and the victims of the violence of the police. Reason is that it is the responsibility. And the court also said these people can ask the CCTV footage, because we have the technology. We have to take the benefit of that technology. So means you can say all over the world, and particularly in India as well, we are moving towards. And again, here the more important role, the judiciary also, because this vacuum filling theory and social bond theory, on the basis of which our judicial activism started. And here stand up for the human rights and how to recover better. And when we will see the international standard and WHO guidelines, UNESCO, and when we will see that the guidelines issued by the different governments, and so far as India is concerned, that Alak Alok Srivastava, that was the first case which reached to the Supreme Court of India, where the problem of the migrant workers raised before the court in the public interest litigation, where the court issued the direction in that particular case. So means in our country, the main role played by the judiciary for the purpose of the protection of the human rights. But you know, law in books or law in practice is totally different. Different in the sense, we the people of India, or you can say we the people of world, having the expectations from the United Nations, WHO, and other organizations, but nobody can help unless or until you will help yourself. Because it is your responsibility, first being a citizen, being a human, to come forward and stand for others, solidarity for the others. Then we will be able to achieve these sustainable goals. Otherwise, it will not be possible. And I am ending my this talk by saying this, one of the poetry, that तुमने चाहा ही नहीं, हालात बदल भी सकते थे, मेरी आंख के आंसू तुम्हारी आंख से निकल भी सकते थे, और तुम तो ठहरे ही रहे झील के पानी की तरह, दरिया बनते तो कहीं दूर निकल भी सकते थे. So this is our responsibility to come out, assist to the society, to the human, and then that recover better and stand up for human rights. Thank you very much, Dr. Naseem and Integral University, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you once again.
थैंक यू सर. माशाल्लाह, मुकर्रर इरशाद अगर आप की तरफ से हो तो एक बार फिर से वो शेर इरशाद.
Hello. What are you saying? Yes.
Sir, I think there are some connectivity issues. So really sorry for that. But I'm here to, myself, Shifra Mishra, and I'm here to extend vote of thanks. Good morning to all of you. It is my honor and privilege to extend a vote of thanks on this momentous occasion of International Human Rights Day celebration. Today, my words are not enough to express the gratitude. On behalf of Faculty of Law, Integral University, I would like to thank you, sir, Dr. Asad Malik, sir, for delivering the enriching and motivating lecture on the theme, Recover Better, Stand Up for Human Rights. Sir, your perspective on human rights expressly describes certain standards of human behavior which inherent in every human being everywhere, and especially on this COVID-19 situation. I'm sure the students, faculties, and all present here will have a lot to take away from this insightful lecture that has been absolutely informative and valuable. We all hope to hear you again in future. Once again, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Naseem Saab, and all the faculty members and all participants and your university staff for this giving this opportunity and to listen me.
थैंक यू सर, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सर. लेक्चर तो मोटिवेटेड था ही था, लेकिन बीच बीच में जो आपने कपलेट और शेर का यूज किया वाकई यकीनन बात को और वजन दे गए. बड़ा अच्छा लगा. शायद हमारी सीमा मैम वही दोबारा सुनना चाहती थी आपसे, लेकिन शायद कोई नेटवर्क इशू रहा. उम्मीद है इंशाल्लाह आगे भी सर आपसे इसी तरह गाइडेंस हमें मिलता रहेगा. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सर. थैंक यू सो मच सर. थैंक यू.
Thank you very much. Inshallah.
Good morning, all. I hope there are some connectivity issues. Before that, Mirza sir is going to tell you all something about suicide.
Good morning. Now, our campaign is against suicide prevention, or United Against the Suicide. Nervous breakdown and mental breakdown are dated terms. They refer to stress temporarily preventing a person from feeling that they can function day to day. People once used the term nervous breakdown to describe a wide range of mental illness. The medical community no longer uses the term, but a so-called nervous breakdown remains a sign of an underlying mental health condition such as depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder, or feeling loneliness, etc., etc. The exact features of what people might call a nervous breakdown vary from person to person, depending on the underlying health issue responsible. Now, there are some signs. A nervous or mental breakdown does not have any defined symptoms aside from difficulty or inability to function normally, like normal people run their lives. But what qualifies as functioning normally or being fully functioning differs among people from different regions, cultures, and even families. The characteristics of a breakdown, which is known as nervous breakdowns, depend on the underlying health issues and how the person generally experiences stress. However, below are 20. There are 21 features which encompasses nervous breakdowns, feeling anxious, depressed, fear. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Junaid. Thank you for filling up the entire network issue. I'm really grateful. I just wanted to end our entire international, or rather, not to end, but to start a new feature. I wanted to say small poetry. है अधिकार तुझे भी, है अधिकार मुझे भी। ये आतंक की आंधी किस लिए? क्यों पल रही है मानवता शस्त्रों के भय तले? ताकत की दौड़ में, श्रेष्ठता की दौड़ में भूल गए हैं शांति को। प्रेममय जीवन ही मानवता का पर्याय है, विश्व अभ्युदय का यही तो पर्याय है। Obviously, the synonym for world integration is the recognition of human rights. If we want to live a dignified living, an integrated life among the mankind, then entire recognition of humanity is the only alternative. Faculty of Law has initiated this recognition of humanity in one of the very fronts. You cannot improve the entire scenario until and unless you have given and you are recognizing the individual dignified living. One of the very important aspects, the legal aspects, have recognized that dignified living, where the violation of the dignified living stands for, is the act of suicide. As our respected, my fellow colleague and one of my very dear members of the Faculty of Law, Dr. Mirza Junaid Beg, was giving you the insight over suicide, it was because of the fact that it is the Faculty of Law, along with the Indian Mental Health Research Center, in association with the center, we are starting a campaign. And to make you aware of the intricacies of the campaign, I just want to have you a look on the reasons that why the people are committing suicide, so that we can create a base and formally commence our campaign against the suicide, United Against Suicide. To start that, I am just going to play a video.
Suicide, the act of taking your own life. A horrific act, but sadly a common occurrence. Every 40 seconds, someone dies from suicide. That's 1 million people per year. Maybe you've never dealt with suicide directly. Maybe someone you know has attempted or committed suicide. Perhaps you have attempted suicide. Whatever your experience with suicide is, it's very important to understand the signs of suicidal behavior. But please keep in mind that not every suicidal person will show these signs. In addition, seeing a single sign does not mean that the person is suicidal. The point of this video is for you to understand these signs and work out whether the person needs a friend or professional help. Sign number 1, suicidal talk. What do you think about suicide? Have you ever thought about killing yourself? How would you kill yourself? What do you think is the best way to commit suicide? Questions or phrases like this may suggest that a person is considering it. They talk about it because they want your opinion. In a way, they are asking for advice on committing suicide, while not openly admitting to it. This may also be a way they are screaming for help. Sign number 2, giving away prized possessions. It's an odd occurrence when someone gives away expensive material things. Giving away material possessions to loved ones may be a way they think they are helping close friends and family after their death. Sign number 3, changes to their will. There are usually a number of triggering events that cause someone to write their will. These events include marriage, having kids, older age, starting a business, or a close loved one dying. If a person seems to want to write a will out of the blue, try asking them why they have decided to write one. Sign number 4, obtaining a weapon. Of course, the mere act of obtaining a weapon doesn't mean someone is suicidal, but paired with the previous signs mentioned should serve as a warning, especially if they don't show any signs of taking up things like shooting as a sport, shooting as a hobby, or gun collecting. Sign number 5, strange sleeping patterns. Those strange sleeping patterns are often seen in suicidal people. It isn't the sleeping disorder that causes this. It is actually stress or restless thoughts from personal problems that cause a person to have trouble sleeping at night. Because of that, the inability to sleep that lasts a long period of time may be a clue that someone is suffering from depression or suicidal thoughts. Sign number 6, low energy. Low energy levels are often seen in people with depression, which is sometimes coupled to suicidal thoughts. These low energy levels happen as a result of lack of sleep and little motivation to do activities that will actually help them feel better. Sign number 7, abusing drugs or alcohol. A study by Bruce Alexander examined the highly motivated for addictive drugs despite the obvious risks like being electrocuted or deprivation of food. Alexander challenged that notion by conducting a study of his own. He would put the rats in cages where they were free to do activities and interact with other rats. In past studies, the rats were in cages alone, often with nothing to do but the addictive drug. In Alexander's study, he found the rats to rarely take the drug. The same implications can be made for humans. When humans don't feel connected to anyone, they may turn to drugs and alcohol as a form of escape. Another reason may be because they think the drug will give them enough willpower to commit suicide. Sign number 8, low motivation for social life. People who want to commit suicide often drop out of their social lives. Depressed and suicidal people often do not feel connected to others around them. As a result, they may end up dropping existing friends or family because they don't feel good enough for them. They may also see socializing as a distant, unimportant thing. Sign number 9, not participating in activities they love. Seen in depression as well, suicidal people find no interest in activities they love anymore. Nothing seems to matter and their interest is diminished. Sign number 10, self-harm. Self-harm is one of the biggest signs that someone might be suicidal. Examples of this include cutting, burning, and poisoning oneself. In a sense, it's a way that suicidal people test the waters to see if they actually have what it takes to commit suicide. Former self-harmers often say that the physical pain helps them escape the emotional one. Sign number 10, risky behavior. Studies have shown that suicidal people tend to take more risks. Look out for signs such as driving recklessly or picking fights. Sign number 11, emotional outbursts. Look for unexplained emotional reactions to certain things people have said in their presence. It might make no sense to you why these words are triggering such an emotional response, but it could be words that remind them of a traumatic event in their life. Sign Sign number 12, body language. This is a very general sign, but paired with the previous signs could be a good clue of depression and suicidal thoughts. Look for body language such as slumped shoulders, staring at the floor, and unwillingness to make eye contact. Sign number 13, past suicide attempts. The number one and most obvious sign that someone might be suicidal is if they have a history of attempting it in the past. This is called suicidal tendencies. One thing people don't understand about depression is that it's not easily cured by a pill. A sudden stop of medication may trigger a worst wave of depression that will lead to another suicide attempt. Sign number 14, happiness and calmness. This sign is hard to spot because you may be under the impression that the person is becoming better. A misconception about depression is that the lowest point, when they're really sad and in bed in one's life, is what causes this person to commit suicide. What actually happens at this point is that the person is unwilling to do anything. They are at such a low point, they are unwilling to eat, watch TV, or partake in their favorite activities. Their days are spent mostly in bed. Committing suicide actually takes energy and planning. So this happens just above the lowest point when they have the energy to think clearly and execute it. Just before the suicide, family members or close friends who were in contact with the victim have even reported seeing them happy and calm. This is because the suicidal person has finalized their plan and thinks they can finally escape the pain of this world. So those were the 14 signs someone may be suicidal. Now again, keep in mind that a single sign doesn't necessarily mean someone thinks about hurting themselves.
These were the signs where a person, or just an example of the signs where a person could commit suicide. To launch the campaign formally, I would now like to invite Dr. Abhishek Kumar Singh to invite our guest for the campaign against suicide.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning to all of you. The Faculty of Law, Integral University, has taken various initiatives under the banner of human values. One of the same is the commencement of campaign against suicide under the theme United Against Suicide, in association with Indian Mental Health and Research Center. With the guest lecture on the topic, Psychosocial Detriments of Suicide. Such an interesting topic can only be dealt by a person with specialized knowledge in the field, for which we are pleased to welcome Said Sajid Hussain Kazmi sir, a licensed clinical psychologist by Rehabilitation Council of India. Currently, he is working as Assistant Professor Clinical Psychology at the Department of Clinical Psychology, Amity Institute of Behavioral and Allied Sciences, Amity University, Lucknow. His academic and research interests include community mental health, occupational stress, neuropsychology, education, and communication. He has published various research articles in reputed peer-reviewed national and international journals. He has edited 2 books entitled Trauma Shastra, Biopsycho Social Perspective of Trauma, and COVID-19 Biopsychosocial Perspective in 2019 and 20 respectively. He is also editor of journal Advanced Research in Science and Social Science, a peer-reviewed and refereed journal. Sir, we are obliged by your presence and enlighten us by your enriched thought. Sir, you are very welcome in Integral University. We are looking forward for your knowledgeable lecture. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah. Good morning, Abhishek sir, and respected other colleagues and my seniors and dear students. First of all, I would like to congratulate you all for taking this important topic of mental health and the correlates of suicide, which is one of the global phenomena and which needs urgent intervention from all the stakeholders, including the institutions, the society, and the families as well. So a very commendable job from your team, and the theme is as well a very appreciable one. And I extend my gratitude for giving me this opportunity to speak on this topic, and I'll try my best to uh, share my insight and whatever things we think are informative for this topic. So, with your permission, may I share a brief PPT so that we can initiate the discussion?
Sure, sir. Please. The screen is all yours.
I hope the screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, sir. Now the screen is
Hello, ma'am.
visible.
Abhishek sir, is my screen visible to you all?
Yes, sir. Now the screen is visible, sir. So kindly start with your presentation. Your screen is visible.
Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir. You are audible. Yes, sir. You are audible. Kindly start with your presentation.
Can anybody please respond that whether my slide is visible and am I audible, please? Okay, so today's topic, the special lecture, the title is Psychosocial Determinants of Suicide. And as far as my introduction, so a beautiful introduction by Dr. Abhishek, and I am thankful to him. So before wasting any more time, let's talk about the topic in detail. If we talk about suicide, so suicide is a global phenomena that is not a single part of the world, not a region, irrespective of place, person, time, and all these things. It is a global phenomena. That is, it is occurring throughout the globe without any kind of discrimination. But yes, the studies and various researchers have reported that there is slight difference in the prevalence rates across the nations. But that is another point of discussion. So far, the phenomena is a global and it needs interventions throughout the nation. So, going by the definition of suicide, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the USA, in 2011 came up with a brief definition of the suicide. And they referred to suicide as a death caused by any self directed or injurious behavior with an intent to die as a result of that behavior. So if we bifurcate this definition into two parts, so we get two components of this definition or the two components of suicide. One is the intent. So first part is the intent or a desire or a wish of an individual to take his or her own life. And the second one is following that wish or desire, the individual applies the or takes the action or the behavior in order to take his or her own life. So one part is the intent or desire and one is the associated behavior. And if we talk about the WHO also, so WHO in 2017, it has again raised red flag on the components of suicide, that it has considered the suicide as a leading cause of death worldwide. Again, mentioning it as a global phenomena and an urgent need for intervention in this domain. If we talk about the prevalence rate, so the WHO talks about approximately 8 lakh people dying due to suicide each year. But there are other studies, independent literature and studies are available, which report approximately 10 lakh of people dying. That is the approximately 1 million of people dying throughout the world due to suicide. So you can see that there is a flexibility or there is certain misreporting also there, that some studies talk about 8 lakh, some studies talk about 10 lakh, but still the figure is enormous, which needs urgent intervention. Here is the graph which talks about the global prevalence, and the data is from 2018-19 study by the WHO, which talks about the global statistics or the global burden of diseases. So here they have put up the overall annual prevalence approximately around 14% in that year 2018-19. And if we bifurcate this data in amongst male and female, then we can get to know that males are, or the male population is slightly on a higher risk, or the tendency or the attempt or taking the desire to take his or her own life, and the fatality, all these things considering the completion of suicide has been reported in males as a at a higher level, that is approximately 14 to 15%. And whereas if we compare this data with respect to females, so it is approximately at 8 to 9%. So there is 4 to 5% difference in the, that is the gender bias differences we call about in statistics. Now I have also mentioned about another matrix, that is the international health matrix, which is again which talks about the global burden of diseases, and it is a cluster of researchers worldwide, which again takes into consideration on various important issues or disorders which need intervention. So they have also considered suicide as a very important phenomena which needs intervention, and they have come up with all these data, which is sharing on your screen. This data is of 2017, where also you can see that they have bifurcated this data and the rates across the years, that the prevalence of the suicide in 5 to 14 years, the rate is here. Then approximately all ages, it is approximately 10 to 10.39. That is again 11 to 14. That is the global percentage so far. Or if we talk about the 15 to 49 wala age group, that is the most relevant. If we take into consideration the adolescence population, the teenage population, and the early adult population, and all these, because the uh, early occupational professionals or the students, these are all part of this group. And if we talk about those who are tending towards geriatric population, that is the 50 to 69 and 70 plus. So again, the rates are slightly higher in these. Again, there are various factors which are responsible for this difference, but still the overall percentage can be calculated, and it is approximately 11 to 14% globally. Those were the statistics related to the global data. Now we cannot exclude, or we cannot move ahead without having an insight into the Indian perspective. That is the what is the status in India. Again, you all being the part of law domain, you all are aware that the NCRB, that is the National Crime Record Bureau, till the year 2015-16, they came up with an extensive data or statistics regarding the suicide. But after that, due to their own governmental policies and all these issues, they have stopped publishing specific data with reference to suicide. But still, independent resources are there. This study which I am referring to is from Lancet, which is again a very relevant one and it was conducted in 2018. So it is a kind of comparative study which provided the information and in a very comparative way. So on one domain they have put up the year 1990, and then on the second one is the 2016. So between these two domains they have compared, and the results are here on the screen. That but a slight contradiction from the global perspective is that globally the rate of suicide is comparatively higher in males, whereas if you follow this study, so this slight contradiction regarding this is that the females are comparatively on a higher side, as well as males are reportedly on the lower side. So that is again various factors are responsible for this. But globally talking, and if I share my own experience, my own insight, then males are reportedly at higher risk, which we are going to talk about in the upcoming slides. So we have been talking about that suicide is a very high priority area, and this is again validated by the WHO's Mental Health Action Plan, which was for the year 2013 to the 2020, which is the ongoing year. So again, certain modifications, certain changes have been taken place because of this COVID pandemic, because we were taken unaware. So there are certain ups and downs with reference to this mental health action plan also, because as per this plan, all the member states of the WHO, they have committed that they will be working towards in their own countries, in their own nations, in order to reduce or bring down the global target that was to up to 10% reduction. But I don't think that we all as a nation, we all as a stakeholders have been able to achieve this, due to other factors as well, in which one major factor is the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, if we talk with reference to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, so that goal number 3.4, it also talks about that in decreasing the mortality rate, overall mortality due to the suicide. So again, the WHO and the United Nations, both the global agencies, which are think tanks, which are the action taking agencies, so these have also placed this suicide in their high priority agendas. So these were all about the suicide. Now, in order to have an insight into the what happens, or what is the overall understanding with the reference to the psychology, what happens and what is the determinants, what are the factors. In order to understand any phenomena, we all have to take help of certain models, certain theories, and here I have taken the help of the biopsychosocial model, one of my favorite approaches, because in the previous years also I have used this particular approach to edit a book on trauma, and in this year I have edited a book on COVID also. So this approach is one of my favorite approaches, because it gives you a holistic approach. because one aspect is the neurobiology, that is the biology. If we talk about the suicide in a specific, then the other factors are the psychological, which are mentioned here. For example, if I talk about depressive features and associated suicidal tendencies, then the neurobiological aspects are there. The neurotransmitters, roles of neurotransmitters is there. Any role of deteriorating physical health might be there. Similarly, or in addition to, or the comorbid conditions of psychology, for example, hopelessness, birthlessness, all are classical features of depressive symptoms. Then any social factors, that is the unemployment, incarceration, combat exposure, and number of factors are there, which we will be dealing in detail in the upcoming slides. So all these combination can lead to a person having the ideations or having the tendency towards suicide. This model that APA, that is the American Psychological Association, they gave this model in 2006. Again, it is somewhat based on that biopsychosocial model, which I talked about right now. So here again, if we take an example of the thoughts and behaviors and the accessibility of any equipment or anything which can facilitate the behavior or the suicidal behavior. For example, here it is written that I am alone. Again, another a feeling of an individual, emotional feeling. Then it is again accompanied by a desire for suicide. So a person being alone or having the feeling that he is alone, it is accompanied by a desire for suicide. Then again, it is again predisposed, or in addition, that individual perceives that he is a burden also on the family. Again, very important due to the financial loss and academic loss and all these things. When the individual starts thinking about that he is of no use, he is a burden on his family, he has brought bad name to his family, and all these things, which can again make a person develop suicidal ideation or suicidal tendencies. And in accompanying that, there is the capability for suicide, that is the assistance or the facilitation by various equipment, various apparatus, whichever can help in taking the individual his or her own life, that is the lethality. So based on that, a very complex phenomena is there which can lead to a person having suicidal ideation and involving or indulging in suicidal behavior. Now, a very important aspect, that is the components of suicidal behavior, because again, it is our own common assumption, and it has been reported globally also. So it is not only a hypothesis that studies report that whatever number of suicides, because again, when we talk about that 8 lakhs to 10 lakh people take their own life yearly in a global perspective. So this is the numbers which we have received from the hospitals, the casualties and all these things, so that we can come up to a certain number that these many people have died or taken their own life. That is the suicide. But what about those who have just attempted, but the suicide was not complete? That is the completion of suicide while stage was not there. So we can the studies based on the psychological autopsies, based on the case histories from the hospital, from the triage areas, from the case files, from the clinical interviews and detailed interviews from the family members. So after all these a very big approach, we have come to a conclusion, and the studies have concluded that the number of individuals who only attempt, this is approximately 10 to 20 times greater as compared to the individuals who have completed the suicide. That is the attempt has been fatal and they have lost their life. So again, this 10 to 20 times wala population is the high risk population, and we as the stakeholders have the responsibility towards intervening and managing these aspects. So if we are able to intervene at any point of time in these aspects, which I am going to talk about right now, so we as the stakeholder will be successful in thwarting that suicidal attempt. So for that, we should understand the three concepts or the components. That is, one is the ideation, that once the individual starts developing or starts having this idea or wish or desire to take his or her own life, to end his life. So once this ideation is there in the individual, again, the factors are many. responsible factors are many, which I am going to talk about in the later slides. So once the individual has this ideation, and if this ideation increases to a significant level, it will transform, or it will graduate to the next step, that is the planning level. That once I have this idea, now I'm going to plan of how I can end my life, in what ways I can end up my life. And if it is successful, and again the predispositions are there, facilitating factors are there, then it will lead to the attempt. And attempt again can be of two levels. One is the fatal, one is the non-fatal. Just make in the non-fatal, we talk about the non-fatal self-injurious behavior and all these things, and the fatal ones are when the individual loses his life. So based on that, the suicidal ideation is there, suicidal attempt is there, and suicide completion is there. Suicidal ideation, I have talked about that. Once the individual has the desire or wishes to end his life, then attempt means that individual tries and attempts, the behavior is there, the action is there, in order to take his own life. And the attempt, when this attempt is complete, that is it is a fatal attempt, and the individual loses his life. That is the suicide completion wala stage. Now, I have also taken support of this stress diathesis model. Again, very important factor, and a very it can explain the psychology behind the suicidal attempt, and why and how the individuals attempt or indulge in suicide. Again, as per this model, there is a diathesis or a predisposition or a vulnerability in individuals. Again, these vulnerabilities might be due to the genetic exposures, the early childhood experiences, and all these things. And once these dispositions are there in an individual, and once they are accompanied by, or there is addition of the environmental stressors, the day-to-day activities, the occupational stress, the here the prenatal trauma has been mentioned, childhood sexual abuse is mentioned, family conflicts, significant life changes, and all these factors. So once these are combined with the predispositions, and this will again lead to or result in development of any particular disorder. So the greater the disposition, the lesser the stressors are required. That is the threshold, a kind of threshold. So once there is a disposition, if we understand the psychology of suicide with reference to this model, then the individual is predisposed or vulnerable towards suicidal ideation or attempt, and it is only a slight level of stress or anxiety provoking situation might lead the individual to take on to the drastic step. So again, this model is very helpful. And for prevention point of view also, if we take the help of this model, then again it is a very successful approach, that if we are able to identify the risk factors and the individuals who are at high risk, which is again I will talking about in the later slides. So once we have identified the population at risk, then we can again intervene on the environmental stress factors. We can work on certain preventive measures which can facilitate the in reducing the environmental stress, so that they are prevented from taking the next step. Now coming to the major determinants, or the major factors, or the major contributing factors which have a direct role in an individual taking or moving ahead with suicide. So first of all is the abuse. Now again, abuse might be the physical or sexual abuse. Just now we were talking about in the previous slides as well, that even if we talk about the suicidal cases or tendencies in the early childhood stages, or the teenagers, or the adolescent population. So again, this role of abuse, neglect, or lack of family warmth, even family violence and family discord, these all factors have been reported in the literature, that they put an individual to a very high risk population. And if again a predisposition is there, and any of this factor is there, so that might lead an individual or push that individual towards suicide. Similarly, if we talk about the couples, partners, the spouses, if there is family violence or family discord, so again the disturbed family dynamics, this is also a very important role in leading an individual towards suicide. Then disturbed parent-child relationships, again a very important factor in the suicidal ideation and tendencies in the teenagers, in the adolescence age, because again nowadays there is a very increasing numbers are there. Media reports are there that 10 years old child, 15-year-old child has taken his life with after a small altercation with the family members. So that was not the only factor कि बस माँ बाप से जरा सा झगड़ा हुआ and the individual has taken his life. No, this is again because he was predisposed, and this altercation, this small argument with the mother or father or the whosoever in the family, this because that added to the predisposition, which again due to impulsive behavior the individual took that drastic step. So these risk factors should not be ignored at all. Then a very important aspect is of loss of a significant others. This significant other might be anyone whom the individual is attached to. If we talk about the adolescents, teenagers, then their family members, siblings, parents, grandparents. Again, studies are there that children or the teenage children who are attached to their grandparents, and once the grandparents are dead, they become very isolated, they become less interactive and all these things, which can again lead them towards suicide. Similarly, stressful life events, very important aspect, because most of these studies have reported that these stressful life events, now again, these stressful life events will be many. I have listed a few of them. That is the failure, because again, we as the educators, part of the institutions, we are responsibility is towards the overall well-being of the students. So we need to emphasize and focus on all these areas which are relevant to the prevention of the students. So the first one is the failure in studies. Very important that once a student fails in any class, he thinks that he is useless, he is a burden on the family. Again, you can relate with that model, biopsychosocial model, which I explained in the earlier slides. So there, the individual has this feeling, the negativities are there, the cognitive distortions are there, due to tunnel vision or cognitive constrictions are there, and due to these things, the individual might feel as a worthless individual and all these things, which can ultimately lead, and once he is also predisposed, if then the risk increases manifold. Similarly, if we talk about the unemployment, a very important aspect, because nowadays since the officially we are in recession, and the pandemic era is also there and all these things, many of the youths have lost their jobs. So once they because they were working and now they are not working, so that transition from the employed to unemployed, uh, the burden of family, the level of financial difficulties, the if they have taken any loan, the EMIs are there, their own expenditure, all these things put an very detrimental pressure on them, which again leads to cognitive pain, and the individual might not be able to bear that pain. And once they are in this condition, so due to the distortion, due to the polarized thinking, the individual might think of that he is not of any use to the family, to the society, and he is a burden, and he may try to end his life, so that the all these pain, all this problem ends. And again, here an important aspect is of the modeling, that is the social learning theories. They also explain this concept that once if an individual is suffering through all these things, failure or unemployment and financial difficulties, all these issues are there, and once if he comes to know that so and so individual, so and so person has ended his life due to all these factors, then the modeling wala concept is applicable, and he might think on the similar lines that that individual was going through this much stressful events and he has taken his life, so it is all finished, and now I can also follow the same footsteps and I can end my life, so that all these pains and problems may decrease or may end. So this is how the overall cognitive distortions are taking place, and the cognition, distorted cognition is there in the individuals, which can influence the individual's thinking ability, which might lead to the suicidal ideation. Then there are certain facilitating factors also, and these are, that is the again impairment in social adjustment, very important factor, that again you can link it with the academic performance, financial problems and all these things. Additionally, the dysfunctional relationships with the children, adolescents or the family members, that the individual is not having good relationship with the we talk about the social aspects, social fabric, the social dynamics. So once this dynamics is disturbed, the overall relation, social support is lacking, might be in the family or the social group, peer group, all these things. So once the individual feels isolated or cut off, so the desire to have a relationship, the desire to have a meaningful life ahead, these all decreases, which might again facilitate or push the individual towards taking his own life. Similarly, this hopelessness wala thing is very important, that an individual, how the individual perceives himself, whether he is perceiving himself in a good way or not, that is the whether he is competent or not. Again, you can relate with that previous example, that if an individual feels himself in a very negative way, that he is a burden, he is of no use, he cannot do any meaningful thing, then again this hopelessness, worthlessness, and all these depressive features will be manifested, and the individual might be forced to take his own life. So again, on all these dimensions, because why I am talking about is that you need to intervene at all these levels. These are the risk factors, these are the indicators, that if we find any individual going through these things, if we are able to relate or identify these are the factors, then at these level we need to intervene in order to support that individual. The psychosocial support can be provided in these domains. Then the catastrophizing event is very important, that the individual starts again, it is a very inappropriate or a negative way of coping, malfunctioning coping style. So this impulsivity or catastrophizing, that individual starts taking responsibilities of all the negative events happening in his life or in the family, that everything is due to me. So I am useless, I am hopeless, I am helpless, I cannot do anything, whatever I do is always fails, I am a failure, and all these things. So based on that, again, these cognitive distortions are in action. So there you need to intervene. Similarly, the social integration concept is also there, that again studies have reported that individuals who are living or who are isolated, socially isolated, or who are living alone, or the widowed or unmarried individuals, these are all in the high risk category of the suicidal tendencies or ideations. Now I have also mentioned in general certain risk factors, because again these were basically on the lines of psychosocial factors. Now these include the psychosocial dimensions, but in addition I have mentioned and taken the liberty of adding few more pointers. So if we talk about with reference to demographics, social demographics, then again the male, because again the if you follow those prevalence rates or the global rates, then there also they have mentioned that the males as compared to females are at the high risk. Then the widowed individuals, the divorced individuals, the single ones, and increases with age. So all these factors, that is the demographic factors, whether the widowed ones, the divorced one, again this is with reference to the loss of significant others in the family members. Once the individual has lost his spouse, has lost his life partner, so studies have reported that the first 3 months are very important, and the that grief and bereavement period, for the 3 months the individual should be put in continuous observation, so that they may not be, so that they can be prevented from taking, because again these 3 months are very risky for them, and they at any point of time they may attempt suicide. Similar applies with the divorce, and the single population is again because the lack of isolation, lack of social support is there, so they might uh, have a problem in this. Similarly, if you relate with that earlier graph which I have showed, there also with the increasing age the prevalence rate was increasing. Yes. So if we talk about the psychosocial aspects, then again, a few important aspects are that lack of social support, which I have been continuously talking about. The individual feels isolated. In addition, unemployment is there, drop in socioeconomic status due to bankruptcy, due to unemployment, due to other factors. And another important aspect is the firearm access. So here by firearm, I do not mean that only gun or other things. It is just the access to the apparatus, access to the instruments which facilitate the individual in taking his or her own life. So not only firearm, but all the apparatuses, all the support system, maybe a rope, maybe some poisonous stuff, maybe gun, maybe knife, maybe a blade, whatever thing is there, which can facilitate an individual to take his or her own life. Then psychiatric comorbidities, another very important aspect that most of the studies have talked about, that individuals, about 70 to 80% individuals who have reportedly taken their life due to suicide, the event has been fatal. So on going through, or the psychological autopsies have reported, their case reports have reported, hospital records have reported that most of them had one or other kind of comorbidities, that might be substance abuse, that might be depressive features, anxiety, all other factors might be there. So again, individuals who are having any kind of comorbid illness, whether psychiatric or the physical aspects as well, these are at the high risk these are part of the high risk population, and they need further intervention. Similarly, I was talking about physical illnesses as well. So individuals having any malignant condition, HIV, AIDS, ulcers, those who are going through dialysis, hemodialysis, and all these things, nervous disorder, nervous system disorder, all these are putting the individual in a high risk group. Then if we talk about psychosocial dimensions, which I have again previously talked about, that the hopelessness, psychic pain, which emerges due to any sudden drastic event or traumatic event in the environment, which the individual or the mind is unable to take or adjust to, that is referred to as psychic pain. Then anxiety, agitation, impulsivity, all these things, if they are in combination with decreased self-esteem, or the narcissism is there, all these traits are there, so it again puts the individual in a very high risk category. Then if we talk about the behavioral dimensions also, so impulsivity, aggression, severe anxiety, panic attacks, agitation, and one most important aspect is the prior suicide attempt. That if you come across any individual, you being the educator, you being the university staff, you being the stakeholder, at any point of time, if you come across any individual who has attempted or had any prior report is there, that any prior suicidal ideation or behavior or any kind of attempt, so in these individuals, you need to be extra attentive, and you have to report these cases to the counseling cells and all these things, so that their proper intervention and management can be done. If we talk about the cognitive dimensions, as I was speaking, that thought constriction or the tunnel vision, polarized thinking, rigidity, all are part of the cognitive distortions. So once an individual faces a very drastic or traumatic event, the mind goes blank. The tunnel vision is there, that the individual is unable to think beyond his or the think beyond the circumstances of that event. So in those references, in those cases, the individual just thinks that this is the end and there is nothing left out in the life. So what is the need of living? And at this particular moment, out of impulsivity, the individual takes that drastic step of taking his or her own life. So your role as the intervention, as the professional, lies here, that if you come across, or if you know anybody who is going through these phases, just one simple intervention is that stop and think. That if in that phase, if you are able to intervene by just stopping those impulse behaviors, then the life can be saved. Similarly, if we talk about in terms of trauma, that is the sexual, physical abuse, neglect, parental loss, any kind of traumatic events in the family, in the business space, all these things we have talked about earlier also. Then genetic as well as the familial issues are also there, because again, there is one theory which talks about that suicide is a kind of, it does not have anything with the genetics, but still it runs in a family, because it is again thought or considered as a gateway to relief from the pain. So once, if an individual, again due to the learning theory and due to the exposure we talk about that once any individual who comes across that acha, my family or my mother or my father or so and so in my family or in my relative, he was facing difficulties and he took his life, and now all the pain is lost. So based on that, he may try and to just model, the modeling phenomena is there, so he may just follow in the footsteps and follow the modeling wala approach, so that he can end his life in order to get himself relieved of that psychic pain. So again, this that is why once we are dealing with the cases, doing the clinical interviews, we especially talk about this, whether any incidents in the family, whether any particular attempt in the family, whether this particular individual has ever tried or thought of taking his own life, because again, these are the links which we need to connect the dots so that we can come to a conclusion for better management plan. Here I have mentioned about certain aspects or the methods of how the, again, it is based on the various studies which have reported that what are the common methods of suicide attempt in India. So again, up to 50% of the individuals who have committed suicide in India, they have done through the ingestion of pesticides, that is the certain harmful or injurious chemicals. Then up to 35% have died or taken their life with the help of drug overdose. Similarly, approximately 10% of the individuals have adopted this hanging method, and the rest 5% have used the sharp objects or drowning or self-immolation, falling from height, and all these things. Because again, and especially in case of females, this ingestion of pesticide, and in the rural population, again, this method is very commonly reported, because the pesticides are available easily, and it is a kind of considered a simple or easy death, that they will just eat or ingest the pesticide and in few hours they will die, a very comparatively less painful than falling or cutting off the body parts and all these things. Now, if we talk about suicide and the latest trends or the latest developments, then we cannot ignore the decriminalization of suicide that was done by the Mental Health Care Act 2017. Because prior to this enactment of this act, it was considered as a criminal offense, that whenever the individual attempted a suicide and could not die, that is, the attempt was not that much fatal, so that was considered as a criminal offense, and he was again treated as a criminal, and there was a criminal case against them, and it was the legal proceedings for there. But after this act, now it has again, it is a favor for the victims, that because the overall stressful events are there, which have predisposed and which have made the individual vulnerable towards taking his or her own life. So based on that, the government has taken this very appreciable step, that any individual who has been involved in suicidal attempt, they will be considered as a patient, and they will be provided or referred to the psychiatric or rehabilitation settings, so that they can be treated there. Because again, the severe stress and all these factors are there, which need proper medical and psychosocial treatment, not the legal proceedings. So again, it is a very good step, and now all the individuals are taken care by the mental health care professionals. Now, if without talking about the psychosocial support system, because again, now so far we have talked about the various risk factors, the determinants, but unless and until we talk about few management aspects, that okay, we now understood what are the risk factors who are at risk, but what to do of them. Might be we are aware, after going through all these slides, after going through all these points, we might come across that we might relate to acha, somebody from my family, someone whom I know, someone from my class is having these issues, so what next to do. So I tried and inculcated few pointers based on that, how we can intervene and what should be the approach. So the best approach nowadays is the community support approach, because we at a large are the part of a collectivist society, the community at a whole. So, and we are again part of this stakeholder system. So we have this responsibility towards our community, towards our society, and we should not deny that. And again, studies reported that these community engagements, these are again very cost effective also, and these are very effective in the improvement and prevention of the individuals from society, especially in the middle income countries like ours, where still it is the mental health issues. And once if you are come across an individual that he or she has attempted suicide, then there are lots of stigma and taboo is associated with that individual. So all these things are there which needs proper intervention. If we so what all things can be done, again it is a very in-depth thing which cannot be talked about in this small lecture, but again I have put up the bullet pointers. In brief, I will be discussing about. So one is the social support to vulnerable individuals. Like I said, we have identified the risk factors. Now we might identify that so and so is falling in this vulnerable or at risk category. Then they accordingly we can help them, or we can at least refer them to the all the universities nowadays have this counseling support cell. Even in our Amity University, I am the part of the counseling and guidance cell. So again, all of these universities nowadays, it is again recommendation of UGC also to start all these cells so that they are at service of these vulnerable students. Then engaging in follow-up care, very important aspect, that once we come across any particular student, any particular individual who has reportedly taken this step, and or he or she has this suicidal ideation, so it is very important to provide them with the follow-up care system, that every few days or in a month or every 15 days the individual needs to follow up, so that you can just ask him how is he feeling, what are the ideation level, what is he planning, or is he planning to attempt or not, so that accordingly you can manage and provide the support. Then another aspect is the raising the awareness level. Again, the World Mental Health Day, the Suicide Prevention Day on 10th September, your this particular initiative, this is all part of the awareness programs. So that again, how much you talk about, in what lines you talk about, at what level, at what grassroots level you are approaching. This is all puts a very positive impact on the individuals who can think of on these lines. Similarly, fighting stigma, as I was talking about, that still stigma and discrimination is part of our society, unfortunately. So we need to put up a fight against this discrimination and stigma. Then giving individuals a sense of belonging, again giving them a purpose of life, giving them a sense of belonging. All this is required in a very urgent manner, because due to the depressive features, as I have reportedly given example twice or thrice, that the individual might have feeling or believe that he is useless, he do not have any purpose of life, and all these things, he does not belong to, or nobody wants to talk to him, that isolation is there. So in all these aspects, the overall um, social support works very beautifully. Then additionally, building social connectedness and improving skills for coping with difficulties. Again, as identified in the prior slides, that there is malfunctioning coping styles, catastrophizing is there, and all these things. So the individual or you as the stakeholder, you might work together with the individual in order to improve his coping skills, and see the other dimensions, see the other perspectives of this calamity, of this unfortunate incidents in his life, so that that tunnel vision is superseded. Because at that point, the individual is unable to think beyond that, whatever event is there, whatever the circumstances are there. So you just need to give him another perspective, make him think, make him ponder over, so that he can overcome this. And ultimately supporting those bereaved by suicide. Again, there is a very tendency of humiliation and all these things, that oh ye to, again very even if you remember that incidents of when Sushant Singh Rajput committed suicide, so one part of the media was continuously running the campaigns and all these things, that kya wo darpok the, kya wo dar gaye. So all these factors are there. So instead of humiliating the individual or the family members and all these, you need to put up a support system, so that others may not try those steps. So this is also a very important aspect. Then another important aspect is of the gatekeeper role, again with reference to the community stakeholders. So in this concept is like the community members take up the role. And what role? First is the identifying the people at risk, they may be the social workers, they may be the religious or spiritual heads of the society, or whosoever is there. Any responsible individual in the society may take up this role so that he can identify the people at risk through the various identification which we have talked about, and then he can identify and then put up them in the emerging suicide clusters so that they can further intervened and managed. Then in the last, I have mentioned about this Menon et al. Case study. It was done in 2018, and they have summarized various practice elements of various suicide prevention strategies which are applicable in our Indian context. So, in general, the first of all is the awareness programs, which again we are all are part of these awareness programs, and the motto is only to disseminate the information sharing, and putting up the information awareness system is there, and educating the overall stakeholders so that they can identify the risk factors and what needs to be done in case of distressful events. Then the screening part is also there. I have mentioned this SALSA scale is there. In addition to that, there are other scales available, that Columbia scale is available, and other scales available which talk about or which can significantly screen and give you the risk factors. In addition to that, standardized clinical interviews are there, where our case history formats are there, which we practice in our day-to-day practices with the patients. We talk about further information can be gathered from the family members or significant others or the near and dear ones of the patients. So through all these approaches, you can gather the information whether the individual is having ideations, suicidal ideations or tendencies or not, and accordingly you can manage the condition. Then the gatekeeper role, I have just talked about that. At some level they need to be trained, the individuals need to be trained in order to get the or identify the risk factors, and then they can accordingly they can also provide psychological first aid and all these things, and one referral strategies should be there, they should be aware of. Nowadays also, still after those so much awareness programs, most of the society members, community members are not aware of what to do and what not to do. They are aware, अच्छा ठीक है, my family members, मेरा बच्चा है, मेरा भतीजा है, and he is at risk. वो अक्सर बात करता है कि जीने में कोई फायदा नहीं, इससे अच्छा तो मर जाना है. They are aware that certain level of ideation is there, but what next to do, whom to approach, what can be done. So all these things should be in public domain so that anybody from the society, if he or she comes across an individual, then what he or she should do and what he or she should not do. Similarly, access to means restriction, that is the equipments, the accessibility. I was giving the example of pesticides, use of pesticides in rural areas, again very important. Similarly, the poison substances and all these things. Then all the cities or the jumping spots, hotspots, the government should identify all the hotspots so that there can be a barrier or some guards are there so that they can prevent the individual from jumping. Similarly, all these means should be respected. Then follow-up care, I have talked about whosoever individual who has been involved in the prior incidences, he should be put up in a follow-up care for at least 3 months. Similarly applies with the bereavement wala concept, that individuals who have lost their significant others, they should be put up in at least for 3 months in observation, that whether they are having any kind of ideation or not. And also there should be hotlines and helplines. Fortunately, the government is also taking care, and our Rehabilitation Council of India has come up. Then the various associations and NGOs are there which are working on these similar lines, that they are providing hotline services, helpline services are there whenever an individual who he or she faces any kind of drastic events, or when he or she starts having any suicidal ideations or thoughts, then he or she may approach to them. Then there are various apps also, and smartphone apps which can because this once the individual faces difficulties and this tunnel vision and cognitive distortions are acting, then the only thing which can intervene is the slight distortion or slight distraction from these events. So talking to someone or using that app might be of certain benefit to the individual. But again, as far as the practical implication is needed, the individual should be referred to the mental health care services, to the emergency hospitals, emergency services at earliest for proper handling of the case. Because again, helplines and these mobile-based applications and all these things have limited applications. So you cannot 100% rely on these things, but yes, up to a certain extent, they are helpful. Then last point is regarding the media practices, because again, there is a misconception. Again, you can relate with this Sushant Singh Rajput suicide incident. There were bifurcations in the media. Some were in favor, some were in against, and whatever they thought, they were just putting up. So again, there is a theory, or the wither effect is there, that copycat suicide mechanism is also part of the theory, that it talks about when the media starts glamorizing any kind of suicidal act, then those who follow that individual, that celebrity, they might again attempt this kind of event. So on these lines, the media should be very diligent, and they may be displaying anything which with caution, that it might not further increase these kind of tendencies in the viewers. Then again, pharmacotherapy treatment is there, because again, if any underlying comorbidity is there, whether mental health or physical illness, accordingly the pharmacotherapy treatment must be there, so that the underlying causes are treated. And in addition, the psychotherapeutic treatments are always useful. For example, with reference to the cognitive distortions and all these things, cognitive behavior therapy, dialectical DBT, that is dialectical behavior therapy, interpersonal therapy, and problem solving therapy or techniques are found to be very beneficial in these kind of individuals. So with this, I come to an end of my presentation. I am open for question and answers. If anybody from your side has any kind of questions or any suggestions or any feedback, you may please come up.
Thank you, sir. Sir, actually, it's a YouTube session, and I think your lecture is comprehensive, knowledgeable, and exhaustive. So it's a complete package. So I think there is no questions regarding this, because your lecture is complete itself. Now, a very good afternoon to all of you. I, Mirza Junaid Beg, on behalf of Faculty of Law, Integral University, I would like to thank our expert, Mr. Sayyid Sajid Hussain Kazmi, sir, who graced us with his thoughtful, provoking, lucid, insightful, and motivational lecture on psychological determinants of suicide. Anything that causes more stress than the body cannot handle may lead to a nervous breakdown or trigger a symptoms of an underlying mental health conditions. Sir has explained very well about biopsychosocial model of suicide, components of suicidal behavior, and psychology of suicide, emphasis on the diathesis, stress model, etc. I'm sure the students, faculties, and all present here will have a lot to take away from this lecture. This has been an absolutely informative and valuable session. We all are inspired by your informative lectures and hope to hear you again, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Junaid. Our suicide prevention campaign, United Against Suicide, is dedicated to tackle the stigma and the discrimination around mental health. Our campaigning work focuses on raising awareness of issues relevant to the mental ill health and issues associated with it. The primary objective of this campaign is to promote the awareness and address the mental issues like depression, anxiety, the addictions, emotional outbursts, mood swings, anger, all the kinds of, and even isolating oneself. These and it will not only provide a platform for the academicians, but also the researchers to discuss their ideas and cater to the needs of the common masses by creating the awareness relating to the importance of mental health among the entire generation. With this, we formally launched our campaign United Against Suicide, along with one of the very beautifully written songs, which would be helpful in those people who are still dealing with the mental health. And it is my personal opinion that if you tend to motivate yourself, a community purpose objective which is there, which has been just stated by our clinical psychologist, the entire essence has been narrated in this song, beautifully scripted by Sahir Ludhianavi, way back in 1960. मैं जिंदगी का साथ निभाता चला गया, बर्बादियों का शोक मनाना फिजूल था, बर्बादियों का जश्न मनाता चला गया, जो मिल गया उसी को मुकद्दर समझ लिया, जो खो गया मैं उसको भुलाता चला गया। गम और खुशी का दर्द न महसूस हो जहां, गम और खुशी का दर्द न महसूस हो जहां, मैं दिल को उस मुकाम पे लाता चला गया, मैं जिंदगी का साथ निभाता चला गया। One of the very beautiful written song, and one of my favorite. Just to launch our United Against Suicide, we do stand Faculty of Law along with the in association with the International Mental Health and Research Center. We stand united against suicide. We would be organizing various other events with regard to create the awareness. Hopefully, you will be associated with us and be benefited with us. Thank you all for being the part of this International Human Rights Day celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you for the opportunity. It was nice to speak on the topic which is very close to my heart, and I look forward to more such associations with you all. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.